It's football season, and as happened several times each fall, Melrose Stadium is filled with family and friends eager to cheer their favorite sons to victory. Don't try to tell these fans that this is just about high school sports, however. When the Golden Wildcats take the field, they wear the maroon and gold, also worn by their fathers and their fathers' fathers before them. With a school roster containing names that go back generations, a Melrose game is as much a family reunion as it is a school event, where not only parents and siblings, but also aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents come together to show loyalty to their school and to the neighborhood they call Orange Mound.
Growing up in Orange Mound may sound strange, but it was one of the greatest advantages to going out into the world that I had.
In 1825, John Dedrick joined a growing tide of settlers to the Mississippi Delta and moved his family to Shelby County. Dedrick's father, George, business partner of future U.S. President Andrew Jackson and founder of the First Bank in Tennessee, made his fortune developing real estate in Davidson County. He'd helped grow Nashville into a prosperous city, and now John planned to do the same for Memphis.
Very wealthy family, landowners. They actually at one time owned the land the Capitol was built on. He came here as a builder, and he came to West Tennessee when the city of Memphis was really very young. He bought land, 5,000 acres of land, about 5 miles from the river. He's on out in the country.
With just a few hundred inhabitants, the small river town was a far cry from the city he left behind.
Here in West Tennessee, we're out on the frontier, and the city is young. There's a lot of building to go on to accompany the growth. We need to realize, of course, river traffic was just growing at a tremendous rate. We're just a few years at this point past the New Madrid Fault, and it's just a few years past the time when they had the high-power steam engines that could go up the muddy Mississippi River. Being a builder in this area was a full-time job.
A short distance from Pigeon Roost Road, Dedrick built a rambling 2-story house atop a small rise, which he surrounded with a thick grove of hedge trees. Deriving its name from the plant's large fruit, commonly referred to as the Osage orange, the plantation became known as Orange Mound. He would live there just 6 years. In 1831, at the age of 40, John Dedrick passed away, leaving the plantation to his wife and 2 young sons, Michael and William. Dedrick's investment in Shelby County was well-founded. 30 years later, Memphis was a bustling port city of 23,000 and one of the world's leading cotton markets.
Memphis went through its great building growth in the 1840s and 1850s. Northern soldiers coming here in the 1860 war commented on the many fine buildings, brick buildings, well-built wooden frame houses. And this has all gone on in the last 20 years or so. The 1840s coming along 10, 15 years after he arrives, the building of the railroads.
One of the railroads, the Memphis and Charleston, which dissected the Dedrick property east to west, was the first in the nation to connect the Mississippi River to the Atlantic coast. In 1825, slaves had been on American soil for more than 2 centuries. Before the first plantations came to West Tennessee, however, only a few hundred African Americans, not all of them slaves, lived in Shelby County.
Memphis at that time had a small black population. There were some, quote, free people of color. Slaves in the city itself would have been domestics or skilled workers, carpenters, inside carpenters, bricklayers.
By 1860, that number was 17,000.
They were profitable with the development of the cotton gin. Prior to the cotton gin in the 1790s, Slavery was actually on its way out in America. The cotton gin changed that. One slave could produce as much cotton in a day as it previously had taken 50. And all of a sudden, the economics of staple cotton farming changed dramatically.
An entire economy moved on a system fueled by slave labor, and their owners would rather go to war than have that system threatened. In 1861, they did just that.
No more, my Lord, no more, my Lord, Lord, I'll never turn back, no more.
As Union armies advanced across the South, slaves caught in the wait faced an uncertain future. When possible, they seized the opportunity to escape.
And he have made me glad.
Out of the war early with its capture and occupation by Union forces in June 1862, Memphis became a magnet for those desperate for a new life, and camps outside the city swelled with refugees.
Quite literally, they're stealing themselves away from the Arkansas Delta, western Kentucky. They're coming in from rural areas of West Tennessee and northern Mississippi, and they are drawn to those Union lines and those Union encampments. Union Army occupation in Tennessee signaled the de facto end of slavery for those regions where you found the troops.
At war's end in 1865, the city's black population, 3,000 in 1861, had increased more than fivefold to over 16,000.
And perhaps you may find him there.
With the South's goal of independence in ruin, so too went its plantation economy and the fortunes made on the backs of slave labor.
If you owned a lot of slaves, you lost a lot of capital with emancipation. But if you put your money into Confederate bonds, if you became part of the Confederate economy, you lost. You lost. And you did government and business with the Confederate government, you lost.
Spared the destruction of other cities such as Atlanta and Charleston, life in Memphis continued much as it had before the war. To make room for the growing population, over 40,000 by 1870, the city expanded eastward, absorbing land once belonging to local plantations. In 1871, the Dedricks opened a 150-acre tract south of the Memphis and Charleston to development. Naming the streets within for various family members, the brothers called their new subdivision Melrose Station. Building was halted, however, as 3 devastating yellow fever epidemics that took place over the next 8 years cost the city a fourth of its inhabitants.
Ultimately, from over 45,000, you had a reduced population during the height of the fever of about 20,000, of whom approximately 17,000 were African American. You saw during this period, ironically enough, although they had been, during the same period, although African Americans were not serving on the police force, it was in fact 2 militia companies of African Americans who patrolled the city, initiated a kind of martial law that in effect was instituted to protect not only the citizens but property.
As the 1890s approached, Memphis fortunes were returning. Population was restored and even surpassed that of pre-epidemic years. The quality of life for the city's residents was also improving. Better sanitation, along with a new sewage system and the discovery of a vast supply of pure artesian water, reduced the risk of disease while improving the public health overall. Streetcars made getting from one side of town to the other more convenient, and construction would soon begin on the first trolley line to be powered by electricity. On weekends, the more affluent could relax at the recently expanded Memphis Jockey Club, first built in 1851 on land purchased from the Dedrick Plantation. Later, after Tennessee's ban on horse racing, the property would become home to the Mid-South Fairgrounds. In late 1889, Mattie Park Dedrick, widow of William Dedrick, who had recently died at the age of 62, sold 60 yet undeveloped acres of Melrose Station to real estate broker E.E. Meacham. Son of a prominent commission merchant and wholesale grocer, Elzie Eugene Meacham was born in Clarksville, Tennessee. After graduating from Kentucky Military Institute at the age of 20, Meacham returned to Memphis in 1868 to work in his father's cotton exchange on Union Avenue. He eventually found his calling in real estate and would go on to develop numerous projects across Shelby County, including properties in the Ansdale and Cooper Young subdivisions.
Daniel saw the stone that was hewn out the honor. Daniel saw the stone that came rolling through Babylon. And Daniel saw the stone that was hewn out the King came down to redeem another world.
Although numerous successful black businessmen managed to rise above the status quo and build homes the equal of any in the city, in the segregated South of the late 19th century, they were the exception, and housing options for most African Americans remained grim. Meacham was about to change that for a lot of families. His new subdivision, which he called Orange Mound, after the name given the Dedrick Plantation years earlier, would attract not only lifelong Memphians, but others from across the South.
Here, we could have a sense of ownership. We could have a sense of viability. We could have a sense of community. We could have a sense of belonging. Property ownership has always been a tremendous value in American culture.
Everywhere you look in the city where you find a lot of black people, they are living in houses that white people moved out of. One of the unique things about Orange Mound, as you look at the entire country, is that every one of these small houses in Orange Mound was built by black people forming a black community.
Memphis began its greatest economic boom that lasted from the 1890s until the Great Depression began in 1929. So all of Meacham's real estate development takes place during a time all over South Memphis, which was the area that historically African Americans had been consigned to after emancipation. So he comes in and offers home ownership opportunity and a chance to build a community.
E. Meacham, he only sold the lot. You know, he didn't build anything. So when he sold the lot, you had to come in and build it. So they gave not only provide opportunity for someone to own a house, but it also provided work for, you know, a carpenter, you know, a brick mason. You know, those people had jobs now because, you know, someone has come to buy a lot, now they need somebody to build it. And when you build this person's house, you found out, hey, I just made $50, I need $50 more. I can go buy this lot down the street and build my own house.
In many ways, Mr. Meacham, even though he's obviously making a very substantial return on his investment, is at the same time providing housing opportunities for African Americans at a time when home ownership among African Americans was practically zero.
Won't you ring, oh hammer, hammer, ring. Won't you ring, oh hammer, hammer. Hammer rain.
Broke the handle out my hammer.
Hammer rain.
Broke the handle out my hammer.
Hammer rain.
Got the hammering in the live.
Hammer rain.
Got the hammering in the live.
Hammer rain.
In January 1890, Alice Speggins took possession of plot number 39 in Meacham's Orange Mound subdivision. Facing Park Avenue about halfway between Grand and Marcia Neal, it was 25 by 104 feet and cost $40. The price varied, but in all, Meacham went on to sell almost 1,000 plots sharing the same basic dimensions for $10 down and 50 cents a week. For some time, most of the houses built in Orange Mound would be the so-called shotgun style, consisting of just 3 or 4 rooms arranged in a straight line. The homes were easy and inexpensive to build. For a few $100s, a family could own a piece of land and a small house to live in. But at first, they would get little else.
There were no additional city facilities. You used a well for your drinking water. A privy was the necessary. It was your outdoor plumbing. Plumbing hadn't come indoors yet. And there were no paved streets. They were not paved, they were not graveled.
Many years would pass before those amenities came to Orange Mound. Nevertheless, the small lots and shotgun houses attracted not only domestics and laborers, but also people of learning, as doctors, lawyers, and teachers built their homes next to mechanics and laundry workers.
Well, I think the word community sums it up. You had people who had common goals and people who sought to rear their children in a safe and vibrant community, and they did what they had to do to make sure that that happened.
You could be a garbage collector, but when he came into that community, this was Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is not viewed to be the garbage collector. Mr. Jones is the head deacon of Beulah Baptist Church. He is the superintendent of the school. He is somebody of note, of worth. And Orange Mound gives him that and gives his family that.
As Orange Mound neared the end of its first 30 years, the population of the Bluff City, at over 160,000, was nearly triple that of 1890, in part thanks to annexation. In 1919, Orange Mound joined a growing list of suburbs to become part of Memphis. With schools for children, doctors to tend the ill, and a growing commercial district, the enclave had become, to a great extent, self-sufficient, and those who grew up there were not eager to leave that comfort behind. Thus began the tradition of generations of families who called Orange Mound home.
The home that I lived in, my father built it. I was born in that home. Dr. Spate was the attending physician. And then my brother, 9 years later, was born in that same house.
I was born and reared in Orange Mound. I was born on Marcia Neal Street. And in 1942, my family, when I was 6 years old, had just started first grade. My family moved to the home house where we live now. I have seen family activities of 7 generations in that house.
We are part of a huge tradition that goes back till 1939 when my grandfather first came to Orange Mound with his family, one of 8 children that my father was.
Everybody knew everybody. You know, if I was down the street or on another street and I was acting up, Miss So-and-so knew me because she knew my parents. We went to church together. You know, my brothers and sisters went to school with each other, so we knew each other, and you couldn't get away with anything. No one felt out of place. We always felt a community. We felt that love. We felt supported in this community.
Everything that you would cherish in terms of the value of the concept of community, Orange Mound had it.
As new generations spread into the adjacent neighborhoods, such was its identity that once familiar names like Melrose Station, Montgomery Park Place, and Meacham's own East End subdivision were forgotten, while that of Orange Mound remained.
Anywhere black people moved in this area was called Orange Mound, even though it was not a part of the original boundaries.
Orange Mound boundaries have, mysteriously expanded over time. It depends on who you ask, what's Orange Mound. You'll get, probably you ask 10 people, you might get 6 or 7 different, bordering streets. We've
annexed a lot of streets that we call Orange Mound now, and that it's sort of growing. It grows in that fashion. I got friends who live out as far as Highland now who are telling people they live in Orange Mound and so on. I said, that's right, Orange Mound Annex. Bethel Grove, Orange Mound Annex.
All day long now, come through Sally, 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 come through Sally all day long.
In 1918, Melrose School was built to replace the small county schoolhouse that had served the community for nearly 20 years. Part of a system of schools founded by Sears co-owner and philanthropist Julius Rosenwald, the 11-room frame and stucco building housed 7th through 12th grades, while the first 6 grades attended another smaller Rosenwald school a short distance away on Park Avenue.
Mr. Rosenwald not only had an immense fortune, but a social conscience, and he funded schools throughout the South to educate blacks.
20 years later, the 2 schools, badly overcrowded and needing repair, moved together into a new building on Dallas Street. Financed through the New Deal's Public Works Administration, the modern brick facility had 24 classrooms, a library, and a health clinic. Later expansion added another 55 rooms. From the time they first entered a classroom, Orange Mound children could count on support and encouragement from everyone in the community.
On Carnes Avenue, there was a Crawford Sundry. That building is still there. So Mr. and Miss Crawford, they would serve ice cream, and we would go there for ice cream and things like that. So when everybody started first grade that they knew in the neighborhood, my peers, they would give us one of these wide line tablets and a pencil and encourage us to do well.
When people are able to go to their community school, and the community school is able to give back, it does tend to bring people closer together.
And they nurtured and expected community work. You didn't just get to go to school. You had to do more than that. You had to really be out. You had to be involved. You had to show up. You had to show out. You had to show your maroon and gold. You had to bleed maroon and gold. You had to be a Melrose Golden Wildcat. And once a Wildcat, always a Wildcat.
People in this city always think of, number one, Melrose being this big athletic school, just producing athlete after athlete after athlete. But I think it's, and it did, still does. I'm very proud of it. And we have all sorts of stories that you probably heard about that and so on. The thing is, I think that it is important that you talk about, and that was the complete school, that academic-wise, we were tough and so on. Music-wise, okay? I'm talking about just across the board. I think it really did have as much of complete programs back in my era during the time before integration came about that you could possibly have. Of course, everybody knew of the Crawfords and knew of Alvin Crawford.
The first African American to earn a medical degree from the University of Tennessee, 1957 Melrose graduate Alvin Crawford is an internationally recognized expert in childhood bone disorders and is currently head of pediatric orthopedics at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center.
When I did my residency, the last part of my residency at the University of Tennessee, and since I now work there on the faculty, I mean, he's a legend.
An active sports program rounded out the Melrose curriculum, and in 1948, the school had a new stadium in which to showcase that program. To this day, games at Melrose Stadium are community events.
On a Friday night football season, Orange Mound is probably one of the largest communities in this city because people come back from everywhere to come back to the football game. That's one of the links that they still have with the community, even though they may not live in the community any longer, and they may not have relatives that live in this community any longer. They always can come back to the football games and see each other and rehash old friendships and that type of thing.
It's one of the few places in Memphis where you can go to a football game on a Friday night and that you got more boosters than you do kids. I mean, there are more people my age there and so on. It's like a reunion every Friday night.
Fans have also shared the experience of watching players during their formative years who went on to play sports professionally. Football is not the only sport in which Melrose graduates have excelled. Olympians Rochelle Stevens and Sheila Eccles added gold medalists to the list of honors, while Ronnie Robinson and Robert Bingo Smith give bragging rights to the basketball program. But the name probably most associated with Orange Mound and Melrose is that of 1969 graduate Larry Finch, Memphis State University men's basketball all-time leading scorer when he graduated from there in 1973. Finch returned to Memphis State 13 years later. There he would go on to win more games as the Tigers' head coach than any other in the school's history. Larry Finch never left the community where he grew up. But even for those who moved away, the bonds formed during their years at Melrose are not easily broken.
There are 4 alumni chapters across the country, in Memphis, in Atlanta, in Los Angeles, and in Chicago. And I chair the Atlanta Melrose High School Alumni Committee as well. So you're always connected. You always get an opportunity to serve, whether you're in a leadership position or whether you're serving. If someone calls you and they say Melrose needs X or Melrose needs Y, we respond.
Roy McLemore was my band director, and to this day, he visited me here in my office recently, and he's giving me a hard time. Well, hello, Mr. CEO, but to him, I'm still that sax student.
It would have been a curse to have gone to another high school, living in this community, because everybody you knew went to Melrose. Even the teachers in the elementary, junior high schools we went to, they all went to Melrose, and their children went to Melrose, and grandchildren. So everybody you ran into went to Melrose. And so as a child, that was one of the things that I knew I had to do. I had to go to Melrose.
In 1972, Melrose High School moved to its present location on Dedrick Avenue. Other schools were opened for the 1st through 8th grade students, and classes in the Dallas Street building ended. When plans for building a new community center in its place were unveiled, neighborhood residents fought to save the historic structure. As one of the few surviving examples of Art Modern institutional architecture in the city, the building's plight attracted the interest of the Memphis Landmarks Commission, which joined with the Orange Mound activists to save the schoolhouse from demolition.
Those people were strong. They would go down and voice their opinions to the mayors and so forth, and you just don't do this to Orange Mound.
It's a thing about people that go to Melrose, they stick together. They can stick together. That's what it's like glue.
Miss Alcine Arnett, she is the one who fought so diligently to make sure that the historic Melrose School building was not torn down. Very, very civic involved. She had cancer and she passed away, but she was very, very active. That's why I am just so passionate about us fulfilling her dream about creating something in that building and not tearing it up.
Current plans are in the works to convert the building into a senior living center and heritage museum. Ultimately, the Orange Mound Community Service Center, with its heated pool, variety of activity rooms, and computer labs, was built around the corner on Park Avenue. Today, the center's gymnasium occupies land once used by the earlier 11-room Rosenwald School, built in 1918. In the fall of 2011, the Smithsonian Institute selected the Orange Mound Community Center to be the only urban venue in the state to host its traveling museum series, The Way We Work. Along what had been the carriage entrance to the Dedrick House, though not at first an official part of Orange Mound, Carnes Avenue became home for ambitious shop owners who supplied the daily needs of the growing community.
It was almost like a city in itself to people who lived there. Even though economically, it has never had that kind of economic clout or viability that you see in a lot of communities and so forth. But just on the being able to meet the basic needs.
Even as new businesses opened on Park Avenue to compete for customers, Carnes continued in its role as an important commercial district well into the 1960s.
On Carnes Avenue, there were African American businesses. Mr. Barksdale, he had his jewelry shop. There were beauty shops always, cafes and restaurants. And of course, there were other white-owned businesses like Avinsky's.
My father, Milton Avinsky, came home from World War II. He was in Europe. He was in the Army, and they got married in 1942. He went overseas, came back, and he wanted to work for himself. So he managed to find a little business on Carnes Avenue. There was a store, and originally there was one room attached to the store, a kitchen and a bathroom. So therefore they had a place to live as well as to open up a business, and that's why they chose to move to Orange Mound rather than downtown Memphis.
And they had everything in there that anybody could want to buy, and they always kept Melrose school colors and so forth.
We had a great childhood. I was blood sisters with my neighbor. Her mother was a school teacher. So I was living in a neighborhood with all kinds of people, educated, uneducated.
In 1960, Avinsky's moved to his current address on Park Avenue.
People have been coming in here for 40 and 50 years that still come in here. Never thought about closing it, never thought about moving it. It's just something we've never thought about.
In 1879, at a corner of the Dedrick plantation called Greer's Bottom, a small group of African Americans founded a new church. With an abundance of spirit but a shortage of cash, for the first few years, the congregation of Mount Pisgah CME Church held services in a small clearing under a makeshift brush arbor. At about the same time, and a few miles away, a group of Baptists began worshiping under similar circumstances as the first congregation of Mount Moriah Baptist Church.
When you start worshiping God, the weather becomes a non-factor for you. So even though in wintertime it'd be cold, people will still just give God the glory.
With as many as 20 or more churches within its borders at any given time, and several that are more than 100 years old, the Orange Mound story has always been rooted in worship.
Our churches were seen as hubs of the communities, and so when anything went on in the community, it came through, it filtered through the churches, and then went out into the community. One of the aspects of black church life is that it does not segregate the spiritual and the secular. We don't preach to the soul and forget to feed the mouth and the stomach, or forget to educate the head and the heart. It all goes together.
A dozen years after their simple beginnings, as African American homes began appearing on streets carved from the former Dedrick Plantation, the congregations of Mount Moriah Baptist and Mount Pisgah CME followed. For the next 30 years, the two churches would feed the mouths and educate the minds of Orange Mound residents with ever larger facilities until in 1926, Mount Moriah moved into its present location at the corner of Carnes and David. In 1929, Mount Pisgah finished construction of its own building at Park and Marshall. Except for a brief period for repair after a fire seriously damaged the Mount Pisgah Sanctuary, those buildings have been home to their respective congregations since.
I was married right here. My daughter was married here. And actually, my mother was married here when she married my stepfather.
A few blocks away, at the corner of Douglas and Grand, Beulah Baptist Church would establish its own reputation as a community church through active involvement in the civil rights movement and support of the Orange Mound Day Nursery. Designed from the start to be a safe, daytime environment for children of working parents with limited means, prior to the approval for federal subsidy in the early 1970s, the center's primary support came through fundraising efforts led by Beulah Baptist. Its mission also attracted the help of numerous charitable organizations and prominent Memphians, such as Elvis Presley and Nat Buring, whose $225,000 donation in 1970 gave the center a new home and a new name. In 1987, the Nat Buring Orange Mound Day Nursery became the first center in Memphis to be nationally accredited.
I had a little book was given to me, and every page spelled liberty.
From the pulpits, messages of deliverance from Jim Crow darkness reach members' ears in equal measure to those of divine salvation.
When someone came to speak regarding the issues of the day, they didn't go to City Hall, or they couldn't go to City Hall. They came to the black church. And the churches in this neighborhood, especially Mount Moriah at the time, and even Beulah, Mount Pisgah, CME, some of the main churches in the community were used as platform areas for people to come and speak and to share the information that was going on.
My trials, Lord.
The church became a powerhouse whereby they could speak and the people would listen. And the pastor was really one of the focal points. And I think about some of the voter registration that took place. It really was within the black church and from the community. They'll go around, just knock on doors, have you register to vote, and try to make sure they get them to the polls. So, you know, all these type things really took place within the churches that was in the heart of the community.
When you have a church community that is in a sense isolated in an area all of its own, you get that cohesion between the church and the community.
60 years of building that cohesion within Orange Mound resulted in a well-organized community network poised to help elevate Memphis politics above its segregationist past.
I could make 5 phone calls and touch every house in the community on a street-by-street basis. We had street captains, block captains, who were enthusiastic about their responsibilities. And when they received a call to contact the people that they had responsibility for, they did. And we could make a turnout which was in incredible proportions for this community.
Although calling it home for more than 40 years, Fred Davis did not grow up in Orange Mound.
Somebody offered me a job working for North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company, which at that time was the largest black business in America, to come to Orange to work for them. So they assigned me a debit in Orange Mound. And as a result, I eventually moved out here. And I got to know the community very well.
Vice president of the Orange Mound Civic Club, even before moving to the neighborhood, Davis also became a member of the Shelby County Democratic Club.
The Shelby County Democratic Club, as an organization, participated in all kinds of organizations, elections, for the school board elections, for city elections, for county elections, for the state representatives. The first black state representative since Reconstruction was elected, A.W. Willis. There's a bridge named after him. Then later on, H.T. Lockett, who was a lawyer, was elected to the county commission. Gradually, we started making inroads.
In 1967, Davis moved to Orange Mound, where he opened the first general agency in the country owned and operated by an African American. The same year he moved to Orange Mound, Davis was elected to represent District 4 on the Memphis City Council, and on January 1st, 1972, he became the first African American to serve as council chairman. Other members of Orange Mound would follow Davis into public service, each one building on the community's reputation for civic involvement. In 1978, just 6 years after Davis became council chairman, Harper Brewer was selected as the first African American ever to serve as Speaker Pro Tem of the Tennessee House of Representatives.
Our community was recognized when my mother and I were selected for the White House Community Leaders Program. And as a part of that selection, we had an opportunity to speak on behalf of the community, the projects, the people, and the passions. And that was an amazing experience that we had an opportunity to connect with various partners and agencies.
The schools and the churches have been the major factors. And then there have been some businesses that have been there forever. Fred Davis has always been in the community, never left. You know, he's active in the church as well as his business. There's several meet and threes that have been around there for a while.
In true American fashion, the lunch counters of eateries such as the Orange Mound Grill, first opened in 1947, became ad hoc community forums. One such establishment became so associated with public meetings that its owner was given the honorary title, Mayor of Orange Mound.
I participated in a lot of activities, a lot of committees in Orange Mound, you know, what that was going on. And whenever they have the different meetings, or we were trying to get something passed, or we want to go and fight for, I used to be there. It just was a good history-making place down there. I mean, all the politicians would come here, like Steve Cohen. He used to come there all the time.
Best hamburgers that I think ever in Memphis, not even trust my buddy Boggs' Huey Burger. Tyler burgers were the best. Now, some people like the sausages more, and I know there were a lot of fans for the sausages, but I like the Tyler burgers.
Ford used to come in there all the time, you know, and we'd sit down and talk.
Born in 1929 and raised just 2 blocks from his current home on Marsh and Neal, Glover was already well known for his civic involvement before opening his restaurant.
It was kind of the center spot for Melrose alums and maybe Melrose students but there was always a lot of memorabilia on the walls of Melrose historic occasions.
It's just Orange Mound. Orange Mound was just like that, and that's why I love it and never left it, and I know I'm not going to leave it now.
In 1947, Memphis businessman Clemens Wilson opened a new movie house on Park Avenue. Billed as the showcase for the finest in Negro entertainment, W.C. Handy Theater doubled as a venue for the leading R&B and jazz orchestras of the time.
When they built the Handy, it was just really the place to go, and that's where a lot of the big bands came. Lionel Hampton, Count Basie, Nat King Cole, all the big bands came. So we got a chance to go to the W.C. Handy Theater, and that was exciting for us. And then on Tuesday nights, I believe, they had an amateur night.
Not long after the theater opened, Riley King hitchhiked from Indianola, Mississippi to Memphis. With little more than the clothes on his back and a $30 guitar, King found his way to the Orange Mound home of his cousin, blues great Bunker White. Soon, the man better known as B.B. King was electrifying crowds with his unique guitar style from the stage of the W.C. Handy Theater. Not all performers had to travel so far to play there. A few blocks away on Hamilton Street, a young Melrose trumpeter began forming his own band when he was just 14. Within a few years, the Willie Mitchell Band was well known in the community and frequent performers on the Handy stage. In 1959, Mitchell joined High Records, where he produced 28 gold and platinum recordings for the likes of Ike and Tina Turner, Ann Peebles, and Al Green, among others, and is recognized as one of the creators of what became known around the world as the Memphis Sound. Handy Theater closed in 1955. It would reopen from time to time and even host other top acts of their day, but never again achieve its former glory. In the 1960s, the theater had a brief run as the Showcase Lounge. One of the regular acts, a popular soul group from the Stax Records label called the Bar-Kays, had direct ties to Orange Mound.
I was, I think, 9 years old. I met this boy who was my age, more or less, who lived not next door, but the next house over. His name was Blair, and you know, real good British name, Blair Cunningham. You know, as we'd say in the neighborhood, Blair Cunningham. Well, I found out that first day that Blair was the youngest of 10 brothers, all of whom were drummers. The next to oldest, I think, of whom was Carl Cunningham, who was the original drummer of the Bar-Kays, which is a Stax, you know, phenomenon, you know. And I knew exactly who the Bar-Kays were, and I was like, really? You know, and not only that, his brother had perished in the plane crash with Otis Redding, so he was famous on a few different levels. And so to meet Blair and hang out with him, and even to go back there and sit behind the drums where his brother used to practice, was huge. Fast forward, I'm living in Paris in 1991, and Blair is living in England. So, you know, I thought, you know, I got a chance to go over there and visit him, and I thought, wow, look at this, man. Here we are, two kids from Orange Mound. I'm living in Paris, I'm touring with Whitney Houston. He's living in England playing with Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders, and with Paul McCartney, and with Sade eventually. And I thought, wow.
Eight years after Alice Beggins paid $40 for a small lot on Park Avenue, legalized segregation was no more. Ironically, in the absence of that which, in many respects, had been the reason for Orange Mound's existence, the once stable community that has witnessed generations who lived their entire life within a few square blocks began seeing empty houses along the streets.
People never come in with the intentions of staying. It's always a temporary thing. We're just going to be here until we can get on our feet and we're going somewhere else. And they stay longer, but they never come with a sense of community. So when the negative stuff come in, sometimes it's with whether it's drugs or whether it's whatever, sometimes they bring that with them.
As you move people out, you tear down houses, you rebuild, you change the structure and so on. So, you know, it's got to go through what history dictates that it goes through.
But a community that produced legends in the arts, path-breaking politicians, and nationally acclaimed leaders in business and medicine would not forsake what their parents had built anytime soon.
You have your churches, you got your strong families, your schools. That element is still there. It's a viable community. The schools are still there. Hanley is still probably one of the best schools in the elementary schools. It's a lot of people don't know about it, but it's an excellent elementary school. Melrose has its problems, but it's seen to be a community school, and people, trying to keep it going, and they take pride in it.
There's a very good sense of place, of belonging, and of community. The principals in the Orange Mound neighborhood are looking for something special for their students. We have 3 grants that have supported the Orange Mound program. There are a number of schools who are open to what we're doing. Hanley Elementary, Dunbar Elementary, Cherokee, and Bethel Grove are all within a few blocks of each other. And the principals have a very tight network. And so for us to engage children, we have to go through the schools. We know they're going to be in school almost all of the time. We know that Memphis Leadership Foundation, another supporter of the Orange Mound program, will go pick up these children at school and deliver them home to their front doors. So there are a lot of natural things that made this a very attractive partnership.
We try to train every individual that comes through our doors, show them the pros and cons of homeownership, but also show them a way to help enhance their quality of life.
When you step inside the boundaries and look beyond the boarded up buildings that you might see today, that standing on the shoulders was an amazing group of people who made it possible for people to be educated, for people to find great progressive jobs in corporate America, for people to find great success as entrepreneurs across all kinds of industries.
The love for the Orange Mound is still here, and even though we all experience some changes, but I really believe that seed that's been planted is still growing and still flourishing.
When people think of Orange Mound, Tennessee, they do think of Orange Mound, Tennessee. Orange Mound is a special place. It is almost, it's considered to some extent a city unto itself. And as long as Orange Mound has that special flavor and the pride of Orange Mound, Tennessee, Orange Mound will continue to prosper.
I think Melrose and Orange Mound have an advantage in that the two are locked at the hip, joined at the hip, and I think we have that advantage over most places that you're not going to do to one unless you do to the other. It comes up a set.
Who may be living right under your nose? Who may be living in that little neighborhood that you drive past and you try to speed up when you're going past it? You never know what kind of seeds of greatness or raw diamonds could be in that neighborhood.